Hey, what's up guys? Tukey here, back again with another episode of my Seattle Mariners franchise mode series right here on MLB The Show 19. Now, I'm going to start off this episode by mentioning kind of what this series has been. I mean, the best way to sum it up, is formulaic, to be honest. Because from the start, when we decided how we wanted to approach building this team, it was obvious that it was going to take a little bit of time. So the formula quickly became build up some people, trade them away for guys who are going to be good by the time everyone on the team is ready to compete, essentially. And that is what it's been for the past 3 seasons. We've been hanging around 500, looking to build up the squad, whether through free agency or in trading. And that has led to the roster being what it is, whether, of course, it was acquiring Jack Flaherty, Eloy Jimenez, Chris Paddack in the last episode, which I'm very excited to see what he'll be able to do for us. But, you look at the roster, and it is in a pretty good spot heading in to free agency, to the point where, and here, we'll go to free agency now. Of course, we have some players that we have to worry about re-signing, but as we go to free agency, while there are players that we could go after, the roster right now is in a good enough spot as to where it's just, don't screw with it too much. Like, that's the stage that it's in. Is there a catcher that we could sign here? Probably, if we really wanted to, but Alfaro's the guy for now. And between Amaya and Kessler, Amaya's a B potential guy. We'll probably play him in AAA for 1 more year. Kessler's a serviceable enough backup. We're pretty much good to go. There's not a whole hell of a lot we have to do there outside of, and I did already go through the free agent list, signing Jimmy Hughes for the hell of it, if we can. So we'll do that. Now, a tactic that I have been taking in the Angels run that I've been doing on Twitch, of course, is signing some big-name guys, like a Freddie Freeman, for example. 1-year deal, get him for as cheap as possible, and then pretty much flip him the next year. But the difference between that run and this run is that with the Angels, we're trying to win before Trout retires. Here, we have no time frame. It is just win and hopefully do so quickly, but no real time frame on it. So sure, while I could try to outbid the Braves for Freddie Freeman, there's really no reason because it might stunt the growth of Pete Alonso. And again, in terms of a backup, Kazmar Jr. is probably good enough. Maybe Nick Pratto takes the jump and ends up being good enough, but there's really not a whole hell of a lot to do. The only spot that I'm really tempted by, or the only player I'm really tempted by, the only position, Chris Bryant at third, obviously interesting, only 30 years old, would probably be 32 at the youngest, 33, 34 by the time that we are, truly good to go. But what would we then do with Austin Riley and Jonathan India? We have players in pretty much every position that we wouldn't want to take time away from. And shortstop is where it gets interesting because of Lindor, because of Story, Seager, and Baez, all of whom would be very interesting fits. I'd say Story less so because of that deal he already has from the Rockies. But there's no doubt these guys would be pretty damn good. But is it not a better approach to let Ray Mitre be the guy? He's 18 years old. By the time we're competitive, every single one of these guys will be in their 30s. Maybe Seager would be 29. He's the one I think that I'm really intrigued by. But like I mentioned too, you have Riley, you have India, who had played shortstop this year. If we sign one of these big players, either Bryant or, again, I'd probably lean towards Corey Seager, yeah, we'd be committing to getting rid of Brandon Lowe, which might not be the worst deal. It might not be the worst option in the world, but of course, expensive is the key. So what I think I'm going to do as far as these 3 players are concerned, if we ignore Trevor Story because the offer is out there, I am actually going to take the approach that I've been doing with the Angel series. And this works, by the way. For anyone who thinks there's no way Francisco Lindor will accept that, he will if he gets no better offers. And that's kind of going to be the key for us here. If we can get one of these players on a super cheap deal, I'm all in for it. I gotta be honest, though, I'm so tempted with Corey Seager to just send him a flat-out offer. Lindor hit 30 home runs last year, 105 RBI, the 416 OPS, so his numbers were down a little bit, which is actually a tad bit concerning. But with Seager, 30 home runs, 106 RBIs, the numbers were up last year. And again, he is the youngest of the options available. It's It's kind of tough to say what direction we should go. But man, if we can get Corey Seager. We'll come back to the shortstops in a second. I don't think we're done there. In left, Kyle Schwarber could be an option, but we have Jimenez. In right, Michael Conforto could be an option, but we do have Ubayashi, who has room to get just a little bit better. And then in center, of course, Malik Smith is still there. And we have Kelenic on the way up. We have Brennan Davis on the way up. Dominguez is on the way up. So do we really need to push Ubayashi into the fourth outfielder role? I don't think we do, especially for, say, Conforto, who again will be like 31 by the time we're really contesting for a playoff spot, and Schwarber will be in his 30s as well, and these guys are going to be on the decline, or at least approaching it, by the time we win. I would prefer to not be like, oh, okay, we made the playoffs, but we lost, now Conforto declined, so we got to get rid of him. You know, that's not the territory that we want to be in. However, we have a little bit more room to work with when it comes to the pitching. Because right now, the pitching staff, outside of having Flaherty, Paddock, and Sheffield, is not set in stone whatsoever. We're in no rush to get Leahy, Cairo, and Fernandez to the major league level. And bullpen-wise as well, while there is only one option I'm really intrigued in, that being Archie Bradley, there are other guys as well that we could sign to boost up this team. And if we're not a playoff team, then of course we sell. Pretty straightforward. But it is that issue at shortstop right now that I am very, very much intrigued by, because there aren't that many good prospects available. Oh, Brandon Lowe. Let me take a look here. Because again, we know our catcher for now is Alfaro. Amaya's the backup plan. Alonso at first. Prado's still there as the backup plan. Brandon Lowe's only 27 years old. This year was okay, but not amazing. Good depth player in terms of versatility. Not really a depth player, that's just the incorrect term. Good versatility for him. Ray Mitra doesn't have to be played at the major league level yet. But, again, there just isn't room. Unless we want Brandon Lowe to be, DH. Which, in fairness, that's a move that we have. I think we're going after Corey Seager. I think that's what we're learning here today. Well, we're going to go for Corey Seager. He is a much better fit based off a time frame, big-time bat to add to the lineup. It just makes way too much sense. The difference here is that, again, because of our lack of rules, we'll say, I wanted to try and get him on the cheapest deal, or for really the longest deal possible, and backload it to have it be, us spending less money, and then we flip that deal by the end of it. The problem is he's not really a big fan of that situation, but we can kind of mess around here because you see just how little that bar is going down moment by moment. We should be able to kind of tinker around here a little bit to try and get him on the cheapest contract possible. Again, these last 5 years, obviously we're not going to keep him until he's 42 years old. He'd retire well before that. But let's just say, if we have him at, say, $27 million per, obviously it's going to be significantly less with it being a backloaded contract. So let's go to $405 million over 15 years. And let's see what his interest level is in that. That's not bad to start. We'll adjust and adapt if we have to. But yeah, Seager is going to be the target. We're not going to have any targets in the outfield, but pitching-wise is where it gets interesting. Nobody here. I'm not interested in Roberto Osuna. That's just, nope, not doing that. But there are veterans here that we can use to bolster up the bullpen, although if Archie Bradley had a good year last year, which it looks like he may have, I am interested in bringing that beard to Seattle. It's a little bit of a risk because the year before was a little bit rough, but if we could bring in Archie Bradley, I think I'm about that. I would prefer to not have it be for all that long. Say we go 3 years, the role as the closer is fine. I just have to compare that offer to Arizona's offer, and he is much, much more intrigued. So even again, I think we'll just go normal because we're not paying him that much. We'll drop that down to $21 million over 3 years. How does it compare? It's got to be a little bit more than that. Okay, so let's just go $20 million or $22 million over 3 years. And we'll see whether or not he prefers the extra years, but right now we are in prime position there to sign Archie Bradley. And then you get to the pitchers. Now, Max Scherzer was pointed out in the comments, and I know a lot of you guys are worried about the lack of lefties that we have right now in the pitching staff. That will sort itself out over time. But if we're looking at pitching options here, I mean, Noah Syndergaard, we could go for the big money deal, much like we've done with Seager. I did want to take a look at Carlos Rodon, who has been okay. He wasn't great last year, but he was pretty good this year. Of course, Mike, very Polish, could be a short-term option, but we only have 2 spots. I was also looking at Walker and Bundy as slightly cheaper options, although Walker's nope. And actually, what's the old FIP, the old FIP? The old FIP, nope, you're just terrible. And Dylan Bundy? No. I mean, you were pretty bad. Yeah, no, that's a no. So if we were to go for anybody here, it would have to be a veteran, like bringing back Mike Leake. Or we take the risk with Syndergaard and Rodon and kind of have that rotation relatively sorted. Like I said, we have the money to spend here, as planned. If we were to go after Noah Syndergaard, the interest level backs down, but if we were to go 15 years, backloaded deal, give him the player option to increase his interest, and just slowly chip away at what we're offering him here. Let's say we get that down to, let's go 410, and see what that interest level is compared to the Mets. Blows it out of the water. So we will further adjust that. And we should be looking pretty damn good here again, without the limitations, without, saying, don't be cheap. I have no problem moving this contract well before it's up. It's going to be a difficult deal to move, but we move it within 4 seasons or so. Once the decline starts, we're good to go. $400 million still has us way up there, but you know what? That's not too bad. It's not too bad. $400 million over 15 years. I can lower it even more, though, and I can't help myself. If I can save money, I'm going to save money. There's just no question about it, especially when it comes... even when it comes to a player like Noah Syndergaard, if we can save money, let's save money, because there will be some contracts that come up eventually, whether it be Pete Alonso or Austin Riley, where it's going to get just a tad bit expensive. So we will drop this down to $25 million even, hopefully. And we'll see what his interest level is at that point. 25 a year, so $375. Bam, still in the lead. Not too bad. And Rodon, you know what? We're going to go for him as well. He's only asking for 11, so he's not as expensive. But I simply can't help myself. I'm going to backload this as well. And we're going to see if we can get Carlos Rodon for extremely cheap. And then again, by far we move him out before it's even a problem. So, not a big deal to me whatsoever. We'll drop that down. Let's go 145. And Jesus. That's really, never mind. 145 is still way too low. And again, backloaded deal. Save us all the money in the world. So I think what we'll do is we'll wait to see what happens with these players, because of course we still have to sort out who is on our roster right now. And then we'll take a look at maybe other veteran starters if Rodon or Syndergaard don't sign. And then we'll also take a look at some veteran relievers as well. But there we go. Those deals are set. Now let's pay attention to who we have here, because Chris Paddock, at the very least, needs a deal. And we will be able to get him for relatively cheap here, 5.1 for the next 3 years. I'll pay him a little bit more to keep him happy, though, money-wise. $16 million over 3 years. Damn good option for us. And go ahead and sign him to that if we can get him. And then as far as the actual contracts on the team, let's see what we're dealing with. So we know Kessler is coming back. We'll go 2 years at $600K. Not too bad. Decent chance he ends up being our backup catcher next year. Chavez, we're not going to bring back. Munoz, we're not going to bring back. None of those guys we're bringing back. They just, of course, filled out the roster. Nick Pratto, decent chance. You are the backup first baseman. You are the backup first baseman, but there's a decent chance you're going to be on the Major League roster this year. I'm going to let Kazmar go. Of course, he's the type of guy that we could have fill out the role. Mendoza can be dropped. Cruz can be dropped. Berg is going. Kimball isn't bad, but I'm going to drop him for now because players like him are a dime a dozen on the free agent list come the start of the regular season. Eric Hoyt, decent role player for us. We'll go $650 for the next 2 years. Gabe Little, of course, is absolutely being signed. I don't think we'll rush him to the majors, though. Isturis is fringe, but we'll sign him for this year. Ricky Carlton, we're going to drop, and Chris Amin, we're going to drop as well. I mean, deep potential guys, nothing too crazy. Joe Rizzo can come back. Not the worst player to hold on to. Mark Vientos will be on his way back as well. Pay him a little bit more. And Rafael Herrera, we might as well try to hold on to. Shortstops, Luis Garcia looking pretty damn good. And the amount of infield talent that we have coming up through the system, still pretty damn strong. Of course, the rate of the free agent list at the start of this for infield talent and hell, even outfield talent has put us into a pretty damn good position. Edgar Valenzuela, I'm going to drop for now. Again, nothing too special. We'll fill out the roster later. Carpenter will bring back. Of course, he was a role player for us this year. He'll be cheap. Could be the fourth option. If we don't have... I mean, with Seager, it's tough to say. He might be the fourth option. And of course, Carmen Rodriguez is going to be back. Obviously, Seager's an infielder. I'm just thinking about DH and how that's going to work. Eliezer Alvarez, we are going to try to bring back. We'll bring him back for the 2 years. He has an even better shot of being the fourth outfielder. Kelenic is getting close, or Kelenic. He's getting close, but he's not quite there. One more season in AAA, more than likely. Brandon Davis will sign to a little bit more. He's looking good. Christian Robinson, also looking pretty good. John Diaz. Good old John Diaz. We'll go 3 years at $600K for him. Deshaun Knowles is looking like trade bait at this point, but not a bad way to go with some of the players we might move on from. Sign up Robbie Lacey, Julio Rodriguez, and Chris Rodriguez can walk for now. So in terms of pitchers, Tom Salinas will be brought back. We'll go 2 years, $600K. Of course, he was just randomly in the bullpen this past year because we didn't really bother stocking up the bullpen. Now, did we? Ruben Miro and his amazing goatee. We'll bring him back. Rick Rowan can go. Berkowitz will be brought back. He's 20, so he has a little bit more time than Rowan. And from there, you're all gone, basically. Archer's not bad. Vigna, I mean, Benton's a B potential, but he's 23. Like, there's very little trade value there. There's some, but yeah, we're just going to ditch all those guys. Chad Leahy. I mean, if someone doesn't sign, Chad Leahy's going to play. Pablo Fernandez has an outside shot at that as well. So we shall see. Again, right now, it's about only signing players that aren't really going to take away development, and just outright playing time. But really dev time, development time from some of our younger guys. So we could bolster up this team if we wanted to with the Chris Bryant. Again, wouldn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense right now, but, once we get into pleased for the love of God, can we finally win territory, then we will continue to just decimate the free agent list as much as we can. As Avi Perez will be signed. Sign Mendoza as well, and I think we're just about good. Rick Augustine. Who else do we have? Hinton can drop. Baez can drop. Castillo has to be brought back. Decent chance he gets dealt. And William Gates. Good old Bill Gates. We could... Oh, God, with a name like that. Plays in Washington. I'm still dropping him. I'm sorry. I'm a terrible person. So we are good to go on that front. So let's sim forward a day and see what happens. Big money offers out to Seager, Syndergaard, and Rodon, Archie Bradley as well. And Noah Syndergaard declines. He goes to the Yankees, $217 million over 7 years, and that plan immediately blows up in our face. So in terms of looking at, say, a Wheeler or somebody else, maybe even the return of Mike Very Polish on a short-term deal, it's likely. Probably still something that we're going to do. Scherzer I wouldn't want to bring in because there's a chance he's going to drop before the season starts. Wheeler has been consistently strong. Let's go for Zach Wheeler. I mean, I know he's a righty and all, but in terms of bringing him in on a one-year deal, he doesn't have any other offers out, does he? He does not. So he is kind of the perfect guy to look to bring in right now on one of those cheap options just to pick him up. And we'll focus on the others from there, but I do want Rodon for a little bit longer. Let's see, Wheeler has already declined. Chris Davinsky to Arizona. And we got nothing going on thus far. A couple of players have re-signed, though. So we still have the offer out for Seager. No competition there. Which I kind of want to risk it and just lowball him now. But probably better to get him signed full-time. We still have the top offer for Bradley. And we still have the top offer for Rodon. The White Sox just really aren't willing to match that. It's a little bit of a risk for Rodon. To be honest, it might not even be worth it at this point. It might be worth to back out on him. We're out on Zach Wheeler. But bringing in like Scherzer and Very Polish for the season, get the rights to qualify them, and move on, it's not a bad bit of business there. Not at all. I mean, again, we could use at least one other starter. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be Rodon. Because you look at the... You know what, Rodon? I'm out on you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Because I'm thinking, hell, we could start Chad Leahy if we really wanted to. The bullpen... I mean, again, I think the go for the cheap option approach isn't the worst way to do it. And then again, in short, it's just, do I want to risk losing Seager by messing around? That is the question. I do kind of want Archie Bradley for the next 3 years, so we'll keep that contract because he could be kind of the veteran staple of the bullpen. You know what, Max Scherzer, buddy, what do you think to signing a dirt cheap contract? If you're willing to do that, cool. I haven't even checked to see how you've done over the past few years, but you're Max Scherzer, yeah, you've been fine. And Mike Very Polish, yeah, last year was pretty rough. Ryu, of course, in real life is phenomenal. Absolutely outrageous. Struggling at this point. We know Walker and Bundy have struggled. What about Tanaka? Kind of rough last year. Then Mike Leake, Zach Greinke, still available. We'll wait to hear what happens with Scherzer. And I'm going to be honest, I'm going to send... Actually, how was Andrew Miller last year? ERA was a little bit higher than it was previously. Andrew Miller's still looking okay. If I can get him on one of those cheap as hell contracts, mainly because it makes... Well, what the hell? I thought I offered him $49K. That was weird. Mainly because if we elect to move him, obviously the cheaper the deal, the more value there is, the more options there are. So we'll also send a cheaper deal to Adam Ottavino. And again, Iglesias, how'd you do last year? I am not liking the looks of that. The FIP's been okay, though. Iglesias is a risk. But again, if we can get him on a very cheap deal, make him that much more movable, I'm willing to do it. It's just Seager who I'm worried about, and whether or not that type of contract is even necessary. But if someone swoops in and takes him away, like the Yankees just did to SYNDERGAARD, I wouldn't forgive myself. So no signings today. Just a couple of re-signings. Next day, Archie Bradley. I don't care about the Tigers deal. Zach Wheeler goes to the Yankees. Freddie Freeman goes to Cleveland. Osuna to the Cubs. And I'm guessing Bradley's just gotten better offers? He has. Oh, boy. I mean, you're still barely within the time frame of what I'm looking at here, man. You got like 3 years before the decline hits you. But I do have money to sign you that nobody else has. More than likely. That immediately puts me in as the top offer. I mean, the Cubs are, still up there. But I do want Archie Bradley. And then again, the rest, if we can just get them on the cheap deals, that's fine. So we will, we'll wait to see here. You know what? Scherzer and Very Polish. Because with Very Polish, it's not that big of a deal. And then again, we're still the only ones that have sent offers out for Seager. Paddock hasn't signed, but we still have some of the guys that we're waiting for. Archie Bradley accepts the offer. Not bad. So $8 million a year for the next 3 years. Not too bad, all things considered. So we outduel some of the other teams to get him. It's a movable contract if we have to move him. And then factoring in, he'll be 32 at the end of the deal. We'll be able to get rid of him before decline sets in as Familia goes to the Nats. And that is it. Rodon goes back to the White Sox, and Bryant goes back to the Cubs. As we still await to hear from Corey Seager, we have the lowball offers in for Scherzer, Miller, Ottavino, and Iglesias. So all in all, not bad, but we are out of the running for Very Polish, who has gotten legitimate offers. So, you know, I'm just probably gonna throw an offer out there for Tanaka to help fill out this rotation. Again, I'm gonna lowball you, even though you're not that expensive. I'm just gonna lowball you because I'm not desperate to sign you, and I want that contract to be as movable as possible. So let's see. Next day, Buster Posey to the Yankees. Outrageous what they're doing. Still glad that we got Bradley, though. Chris Paddock still hasn't signed. We have time, though, until the 23rd and then December 2nd for the rest of those deals. Next day, still nothing. JD Martinez goes back to the Red Sox. We had a couple of guys sign contracts, though. Next day, still nothing. I don't think Seager wants to sign, man, because he would have already, but he still hasn't gotten a better offer, and do I risk it? This, you know, the success in this series doesn't live and die by what happens with Corey Seager, but obviously he would be a tremendous pickup. It's frustrating that he hasn't signed, seeing as he has no other offers yet, but we'll still just try to lowball him here because you can imagine how good of a contract this will be, this will be for the next 5 years or so before we really have to start worrying about him declining as he heads into his early to mid-30s. But this is a massive risk. If he gets another offer and takes it immediately, then we missed out. But if he signs, he is on a simply outrageous deal, and we will be laughing all the way to the bank, as we'll never really have to worry about, oh, where's the money coming from for Austin Riley? Where's the money coming from for Pete Alonso? It'll be there. We'll go 360 over 15 years, as that definitely alters his amount of interest. But we'll see what happens. Next day, still nothing. Brendan Rodgers goes back to Colorado. Still awaiting some guys to sign, although I don't think we sent offers to too many of those guys. Still have the lowball offers here. Next day, November 11th, Iglesias goes to Houston. As upsetting as that is, but again, lowball offer. Not too concerned. Next day, still nothing from Seager. As Paddock finally signs, and in terms of who we send offers to, we're good for free agents or, contracts that are up. It's just now focusing on free agency. We have signed Archie Bradley. Now it's just a wonder as to whether or not we're going to be able to bring in a veteran like Scherzer or Tanaka, Adam Ottavino to boost up the bullpen, and Corey Seager on a ridiculous deal. Still nothing. Next day, Andrew Miller has declined. He gets an offer from the Nationals that he takes, and we still have not heard from Seager. He has no other offers, nor do the three remaining. Next day, still nothing. This is the longest I've seen some top... Well, in fairness, not the longest I've seen some top players hold out. But at this point, it wouldn't be the worst idea in the world to send lowball offers to Francisco Lindor and Javi Baez. It really wouldn't be. I'm still going to stay in for Seager here. Next day, nothing. Next day, nothing. Next day, nothing. He knows, man. He's too smart. He knows. And unfortunately, we're out for Ottavino as well, so I don't know what the bullpen's going to look like heading into next year, outside of the fact that we brought in Archie Bradley. But again, we're not really in a rush. We're not really in a rush. Still no offers for Lindor or Baez, so we're in a good spot in that way. 40-man must be set. We're fine in that regard. Free agency, still no other offers for Seager and Scherzer and Tanaka. As we move on. Come on, Corey. We have 93 players. Did somebody sign? Nobody signed, but apparently we have 93 players. Release. Not edit. Did I not say release? I mean, technically these guys shouldn't even be here. Release. Get off my team. We shouldn't even have 93 players based off of who I signed in free agency. I am very confused where these 93 players are allegedly coming from. Unless I am missing a drastic amount of people. I mean, yeah, I don't see where these people are coming from. We have 22 of 15. Okay, so we have a little bit more extra pitching than we need. But it's nothing too crazy, in theory. So let me just make sure that all of these guys are dropped in case they're still counting against the team for whatever reason, which they shouldn't be. And we should be fine. Free agency, the offers are still out there. Let's move forward a day. Max Scherzer signs in Seattle. 1-year deal, 8.5. Not too bad at all. I will take it. Cheap deal for Scherzer. Still not the guy that we wanted, but still not too bad. The veteran signs. So we wait to see what happens with Seager and Tanaka. He will improve the rotation, and he's a tradable piece if we're still terrible, which we will be. Mike Very Polish goes to the Boston Red Sox, which I can't say is all that surprising. He gets a pretty good contract. Still nothing from Seager. Still nothing from Masahiro Tanaka. With Lindor and Baez still available as well. Schwarber finally has an offer from Arizona. As again, there is still nothing to worry about in that regard. Come on, Seager. Ottavino is not going to be joining us. Schwarber goes to Arizona. Come on, man. Seager, you know you want to. I have to keep an eye on whether or not he gets an offer so we can adjust. Next day. Lindor is off the market. He goes to Miami. Big contract there. And one of the big names left happens to be off the market. And there we go. People are in for Seager now. The second Lindor goes, people are in for Seager. We have to adjust the offer. So we tried like hell to get him on a pretty damn good contract, and we just couldn't do it. What is the intrigue there? It's the top. So you know what? Basically, we'll go in, 15 years, player option, backloaded max contract. It's the most value we can possibly give him. And if he doesn't accept, we shift our focus onto Javi Baez for now. And in terms of pitchers, again, we still have the only deal out there for Tanaka, who could be our fifth man this year. We cannot afford the contract of Corey Seager, which I disagree with how much left we have in the budget. I strongly disagree with that. I think that's horseshit, actually. If I'm going to be honest with you, that should go through. That should be fine, unless the backloaded issue. And then Javi Baez is a big-time offer as well. We might not be getting Corey Seager after all. Call it a hunch. Call it a hunch. But if that deal for Seager can't go through, then we're out, unfortunately. Yeah, apparently we can't afford him. So the Baltimore Orioles have completely screwed us. Unless we just try for a normal offer. So we'll go 5 years. Still try to go... Actually, it's $31 million, man. I can't do it. I can't offer Corey Seager a max deal. I mean, I can, but I just don't want to. And the longer the contract is, the less he's interested. We're out on Corey Seager, unfortunately. So all that is for naught. In terms of starters, we will await the answer from Tanaka. And depending on his response, Zach Godley has not been. He's been anything but. Taylor Cole, oh my god. I'm just kind of looking for a guy with low stamina that could be the long reliever if we need him to be. Mike Minor is... he's actually been okay when he's played-ish. We'll just let that be. And then bullpen-wise, we have Bradley, Sammy T, Altavia. We have Pedro, and then we need two more. So, I mean, it could very well be Gerber and Luciano. Or Luciano, whatever. And, or we could go with Rowe, who has been god-awful. Tommy Hunter, as a veteran, who has been god-awful. David Phelps, who has been okay. So we'll send a lowball offer in for one David Phelps just to try and save some money. It won't be that much. And anybody else? Richard? Nope. Mike Morin was decent, kind of, last year. You know what? Let's go for it. A 5-year deal. You're out of your goddamn mind, but I'll give you $2 million to help bolster up the bullpen. Damn shame that we're not going to be able to get Seager, but a max contract just isn't going to happen, unfortunately. Corey Seager goes to Baltimore. Backloaded contract, 7 years, $20 million to start. It certainly will not stay that way. And again, there is still the option of Baez, but he has a massive, massive deal from Arizona there. And unless the same trick were to work, we would be relatively screwed. Now, granted, he's only looking for 23. If I drop that down to 350, how do we compare? Blow him out of the water. Might as well go for it and see what happens at this point, right? He's the last big free agent left. Maybe he's the Seager replacement. Freddie Freeman signs in Cleveland and gets dealt to the LA Dodgers within a few weeks of one another for Drew Jackson and Wilson Gordon. Mike Morin has rejected because Javi Baez has signed. I was not expecting that. The 29-year-old, 90 overall Javi Baez has signed, again, a 15-year deal, which will not be, we're not living up to that end of the bargain. But he will be in. That'll probably force Brandon Lowe into a DH role. But Javi Baez is here for more than likely, at the very least, the next 3 years. Again, I was more intrigued, I got to admit, by Seager, but he had a better year last year. Maybe it's a pretty damn good pickup for us. So we snag Javi Baez, and this team's looking relatively interesting at this point. Again, wait, bide our time, strike when the big free agents are available, and it worked out there. Unfortunately, Tanaka and Phelps are just, I guess, holding out for better options, so we will advance to the Rule 5. Chris Taylor goes to Minnesota, and we get to the Rule 5 draft. So let's see what we can do here. We have the 12th pick, and we'll see who or what is available to us here. So in terms of catchers, nobody, because we don't need a catcher. In terms of first baseman, Sam Travis. If I wanted Travis to be on the bench rather than Prado, I'd consider it, but no. Wow, this is a weak Rule 5 class, man. Outside of Chad Kuhl, although Tanaka has signed. So there you go. It was just a very unceremonious signing. But Tanaka has signed. We could bring in Chad Kuhl as that bullpen option I talked about, or the long relief option that I talked about. And, you know, we're going to do just that. Chad, congratulations. You're going to be our long reliever this year. And we're pretty much good. Unless we bring in a reliever. So let's see, we have 1, 2. Yeah, technically we could bring in one more guy. Either Kyle Crockett or Silvino Bracho. I'm probably going to go for Crockett because your name's easier. Granted, Drew Smith is there at 28 years old. Hasn't really played. You know, Drew, I'm not really digging some of the lower stats. The walks and home runs are fine, though. The Ks and hits are a bit off. Bracho, and I mean the most well-rounded's Crockett. Kyle Crockett, congratulations. We'll take you to help fill out this roster, and we are good. So overall, while it was a little bit longer of a process than I was hoping for, you know, we go through the saga of is Corey Seager going to sign, and unfortunately he did not. The roster is still looking relatively good. It improves in certain ways. You know, whether or not it's the right idea to take a step forward in a certain regard by bolstering up the rotation in the bullpen, that's a whole nother question. But for this season, we can still send down Amaya. Yes, we can. So for this season, we're going to go. Now, Amaya does want to play in the majors, but that's just not going to happen. He's not ready. You can look at those attributes. So we're going to go with Alfaro and Kessler. And, of course, we'll fill out the rest of this roster with just a bunch of nobodies. So the key players that you have to care about are here at the very least. So obviously Alfaro is going to be our guy, Kessler the backup. I'll probably try to find a better backup first baseman. I don't want to rush Prado, so we'll leave him in AAA and sign somebody to play behind Pete Alonso at the major league level. Second base, of course, we have Lowe and Hoyt. That won't change. Gabe Little will be in AAA this year. Hoyt might get sent down. He still has all three options. It depends on what the lineup is looking like otherwise. Of course, Riley and India will be in the team this year. Robert Poisson will not. Oh boy, he will be. Now, technically, we could try to send him down through irrevocable waivers, which would be a good way to go. So we will try to send him down if we can, because, of course, Baez is here. Ray Mitra will spend, let's give him a season in AAA. And if he's killing it, then, hey, maybe he forces our hand. But obviously there's some ridiculous talent there at shortstop. And then again, Jimenez, Carpenter, Smith, and Alvarez. I'd prefer Carpenter just because he obviously has the speed. And we're going to have to risk trying to send down Dominguez as well, and John Diaz, which is going to be interesting to see if that works out for us. Pitching-wise, it's going to be Flaherty, Paddock, Scherzer, Kuhl, Sheffield, and Tanaka. So Coggin will be down in the minors, and everybody, of course, down below him in those rankings will be down in the minors. We'll see if we can get Bryce Wilson through waivers. And then the bullpen is going to be Pedro, Archie, Sammy T, Altavia, Phelps, and Crockett. Will give Gerber a season down in AAA yet again. Try to get him a little bit more seasoning and a little bit more development. So, pitching-wise, I mean, obviously, we brought in Paddock last year. The addition of Scherzer, Kuhl, and Tanaka through free agency in the Rule 5 makes us a little bit better rather than relying on Leahy and Bryce Wilson. And then relief-wise, the big signing, Archie Bradley, who will probably be our closer this year. The addition of Phelps and Crockett, not too bad, all things considered. Now, before we look to call this, number one, do we have better scouts than who we already have? It's a no there. It's a no there. No, we're fine unless there's somehow a better East scout. And the answer is no. So in terms of scouts, we're good. Let's see if everybody clears waivers, because they might not. We'll auto-fix rotation. Let's see here. I think they all made it, which sometimes they can in spring training. Yep, not seeing any waiver options. Perfect. Everybody made it. So with that, I think we're good. You can kind of get a look at how good the team is. You know what? Screw it. I'll fill it out right now. Jump cut. And we'll take a look at the full team. So again, it took a while, but the roster is finally set for the 2022 season, our fourth season at the helm. That is how we shape up in terms of rankings, arguably the best we have ever been. In terms of standings, we're the 10th ranked team right now. Fairly well-rounded, great speed rating, pretty damn good defense. Everything is starting to come together a little bit, so we're pretty much right on schedule. Obviously, someone like Scherzer isn't a long-term solution, but in terms of thinking maybe playoffs this season, getting that little bit of playoff experience for this younger core, that is absolutely there. And in terms of top prospects, while we don't have anybody in the top 13, unfortunately, do we have anybody at all? Could have sworn we did. Hey, Kalanick is there at 33, and he's the only one, which is, that's not a great indication of how our system actually looks right now. This is going to be the rotation. Flaherty, Paddock, Sheffield, Scherzer, and Tanaka. Tempted to run Scherzer in the 5 spot. We're going to run him in the 3 spot, or Sheffield in the 3 spot over Scherzer. Of course, Chad Kuhl will be the long reliever. The bullpen shaping up like this: Pedro Rodriguez, Kyle Crockett, David Phelps, Dan Altavia, Sammy T, and Archie Bradley as the closer. And down in the system, I mean, again, someone like Pablo Fernandez is there, and obviously someone like Chad Leahy, Merrill Willingham in the bullpen. The Willingham not looking that bad. The double-A rotation, honestly, is not that bad either. And in terms of lineups, here's how we shape up. Malik Smith in center, Javi Baez in short, Eloy Jimenez in left, Pete Alonso, Austin Riley, Jorge Alfaro, Brandon Lowe, Jonathan India at DH, as he is the weakest fielder, and Seiji Ubayashi in right. Of course, the order I'm sure will change. We signed Daniel Murphy to be the backup first baseman this season, 37 years old. Played last season in Colorado, didn't do that bad. 17 home runs, 74 RBIs. He was still on the free agent list. Daryl Carpenter's there, Eric Hoyt, and Roman Kessler. And when we don't have a DH, it is Brandon Lowe who ends up sitting. Baez ends up playing second base with India at short. So Brandon Lowe is going to be the odd man out because of this Baez signing, but we're in the AL, so it's not the worst case scenario. And taking a look at AAA, I mean, guys like Prado, Kelenic are there. Of course, Ray Mitra, Gabe Little, Amaya. I haven't set up the order. I'll see how the AI sets it up and then take it from there. But we're looking pretty good. And obviously, guys like Dominguez, Poisson, Carmen Rodriguez, we're looking pretty good. Now, again, I'm not expecting much this season. And maybe, just maybe, had we ended up with Corey Seager, we'd be looking that much better. But to sign Javi Baez to what we did, and you look at that contract, that's why we signed him to what we did. I mean, again, say we move him in 3 or 4 seasons, he's going to be, it's such a movable deal. It really is. Moving someone the caliber of Javi Baez who's only making $20 million, hell, right now, if I'm allowed to trade him, it might still be too early, but if I were to send out an offer for Baez, what would it be? Yeah, teams, no problem. We could cut a ton of salary by trading him to Baltimore. We could exchange him for Wendell and Romero, which would also save us a ton of salary down the road. You get the point. We're looking good. It's a very movable deal. We're not going to get stuck with it because we don't have to stay loyal. I'm feeling pretty good. And then again, the addition of Archie Bradley as well for the next 3 years. Not a bad bit of term, only $8 million per. Hopefully he doesn't start to decline just a tad bit early, but a decent addition. Feeling good about this team. It was definitely, at least in my opinion, the right idea to take that step back and to build things up. Didn't know that we'd end up with Alfaro. Didn't know that we'd end up with Pete Alonso or Austin Riley, but especially Javi Baez. But it's looking good. This could be a pretty damn interesting season for us. And unfortunately, by the way, we only have 2 lefties in the pitching staff, but I'm not too concerned about that. I mean, as far as just how much of an impact that has in the sim compared to actual baseball, I haven't seen too much of a difference aside from the fact that during the playoffs you make a team change their lineup, which often doesn't change that much. So it is what it is. We are done here for today. I hope you did enjoy the Seager saga for what it was worth. Probably an episode that quite a few people wanted to, or probably did skip through bits at a time, which again is all well and good. But, that just kind of shows like, oh, hey, we're going to sign Seager. What happened? Well, I jump cut it. Here's what happened. Really? But what about this? What about that? See, you had it all there. You can watch the entire episode if you wanted to know what happened. We're done, though. Check out everything in the description if you haven't already. Drop a like on the video if you haven't already to help me out with YouTube's ridiculous algorithms to help this channel grow. Please. Please. It's cool. Better than I ever thought it would be. I'll see you guys in the next one. Season 4 begins in Seattle. Will our hopes and dreams be crushed? Will it be a special year? Will we make the playoffs for the first time? We'll find out.